Hello, everybody. Welcome back. This is the OverPower Mountain Podcast. I'm your host, the GOAT, Marcel. Boy, do we have a fun one today. I'm going to want you to settle in, relax, just get ready for the smooth tones of this podcast because it's going to be fun. Today, my friends, we are going to cover combo decks. So, people are always like, there's no combo decks in OverPower. Well, there sure is, my friends, and I have to admit, over this last year, with battle sites being more of a feature from Devourer of Worlds banning in 2023 season beginning, battle sites and combo decks have started to crop up, I have to admit, especially with the new home bases that are active out there. And I have to say, the ones I'm going to go over today are just all so fun, so unique. I have to say, the people who created them, this is the type of thinking that I think as the game potentially sits in this beautiful meta we have right now, more types of these types of decks as more people enter the game could potentially come to the forefront, especially in as we enter the next chapter and potentially in a new modern era. So, without further ado, I really want to kind of go over these four decks. I really want to feature them and spend the most time on them. The only thing I will mention before all of them is obviously thank you all for listening. Please do like, subscribe. I do need some more subscribers, my friends. I would like to do my first live cast before the end of the year. So let's hit that subscribe button. Let's you're listening every time I put something out. So you may as well have a little red dot that says your subscription is ready to go. It's free. It's free. It's absolutely free. So hit subscribe, hit like, and write a comment because I always love hearing from everybody who's listening. So the only thing about combo decks that is unique is OverPower never really had them. The only ones that really sort of existed were like, half, 2-3 card combos back, other than when before a lot of defensive style lock off deck, non-one per deck versions, in the 90s got banned. There really wasn't many combo decks where a combo would come into play and your opponent actually wouldn't be able to do anything about it. Now, I'm going to talk about these four decks. I guess in old retrospect, the only combo decks would be something along the lines of like, a Vertigo into the X Babies, into a Tuck, or into a kill card from Onslaught. Like this is the type of combos that really were out there. There really wasn't too many things you could put into play where your opponent really just couldn't do anything if they didn't have the right card structure. So the first one I want to feature, this one I think is the most wild, unique, inventive, symbiotic with the cards meeting the event, meeting the perfect hand, meeting the Venture 7 style combo deck. That when I say combo deck, that's what I love. It's like, I have my thing, Venture everything I have. That's right, I'm going to win. The one thing I love about this deck that was added in as a feature was actually a mechanism of losing early to basically reset and be able to Venture 7 when your perfect hand came or when you created it. So without further ado, I have to say it has one of my favorite characters on it. John Keffer has been playing this deck now, I want to say, for a couple of years. He's been trying to craft it and perfect it. And I have to say, in the last tournament, there was a moment, I believe it's on camera, where this deck just works to the perfection upon which the author of the deck wrote it. and it works in a way that just when you watch it, it's just magic. The characters on this deck are the Marauders. As I just mentioned, that Vertigo fan of old school. I can't believe they're making a comeback. And then we got Betsy Braddock, Psylocke. Like, not only does he not use Psylocke, but he uses the Betsy Braddock version, which, first and foremost, a lot of people don't even know this character exists. I believe it was in the X-Men set, or maybe the classic set. You know me, friends. You know I always just mush those two together. So it's one of those two, and it's just a really unique character because we're going to get into what she adds to the deck, but just awesome pick. I love that he always puts her front and center as well, as if like she is leading the charge going in. And then, as I just mentioned, one of my favorite characters. I've loved him. I've always wanted to use him. I've never been able to figure out a way, and I just love that this deck has him in it. Maybe her, Beta Ray Bill. Phenomenal character. So Beta Ray Bill is a variant of Thor, may play Thor specials. And this one's unique because of getting the Thor skill card sets. For I believe it's only 1 point less, and moving into the intellect area. I don't think any of that mattered for this deck, but the coolness that he used Beta Ray Bill in my mind is just top notch. Kudos. And in reserve, he actually has Donald Pierce, which is one of the Reavers variants as well. So, and please excuse me if I'm not using variant clone properly. I think you understand what I'm trying to get across to you. In the battle site range, he is using Onslaught Citadel. We've spoken about that actually pretty intensely in one of the last podcasts. And Marvel Universe as the home base. Now, the -1 to venture to the opponent, I think is very, very vital here. Age of Apocalypse as the mission set. Now, the point total is dead on 76. So I know people out there are like, why didn't he use Thor? Well, he didn't have them points. Okay, Thor would be 1 more point than Beta Ray Bill. And Beta Ray Bill, Thor, I don't know. That's debatable who's cooler on the deck. I'm not going to lie to you. So, what does this deck do? Well, I have to admit, when I first played against it in Valhalla in 2023, I don't know if there's a better example in my mind of not respecting the deck that's across from you and not understanding what a deck can do to you, and thinking that you can play around with a deck of this nature when its combo goes off. So the combo, and John, I apologize. I'm not gonna get too crazy into how I believe you can beat this deck. I don't really want to overly spoil these gentlemen's amazing, IP and just their work they put into their deck structure and deck build. But I am going to talk about roughly how it works in terms of the combo that you're going to get to see. So in this particular deck, it's very I picked it first because I think I'm going to talk about it the longest out of all the 4 decks. And it just has so many layers and depth to it that I don't even know if I'm going to be able to talk about all the little things that it truly can do. So the Marauders are a very key character into the deck that is being run here. Now, they get the option of obviously getting the Vertigo into play. Now, obviously, when you get a Vertigo into play, you get to sort of rule that battle, and it creates an amazing structure that way. Now, if Vertigo gets negated, which, 8 out of 10 times Vertigo does get negated in tournament play, I imagine, depending on what's going on. But That's kind of one of the things that I think this deck wants to occur. John is trying to always eat up the negates, as the finale of the deck is a lockout style structure. So, having cards like, obviously, Vertigo, you also have Malice from them as well. They have that amazing 5 energy that gets rid of specials in hand. Um, so just a good card structure all around, and obviously very good usually on the stats. However, in this particular deck, John's stats are all over the place. It's more about the combo. So now the Marauders obviously having the ability to gain the Malice and get one of their other teammate specials from the dead pile and play it immediately, I think is pretty huge in this deck. It allows him truthfully to have a lot of access to Beta Ray Bill or Thor's cards. Now, one of the things essentially that the deck is trying to do is it's either trying to cycle through Gift of the Gods, or it's essentially trying to locate the Viking Pyre, which will ultimately allow John to create that perfect hand moving forward and bet the 7 that he's looking to do when he can create his combo structure. Now, Psylocke Betsy Braddock is really nice because she adds a little, obviously I told you, the funk and the flair to the whole deck here, but she creates a card that came out in Marvels, and it allows Psylocke to play it, and the opponent cannot negate any other cards other than that card first. So if you get that in play and your opponent doesn't negate it, then they can't actually negate any cards for the rest of the round, no matter what you're doing, until they go through that Psylocke card. So it's a really underrated card, I think, and you could potentially see more Psylocke's, or dare I say Betsy Braddock's, in the future, as it's a non-one per deck. It really could, be the buffer that a lot of combo decks need to get out, so opponents can't, just blatantly negate the card that makes the combo run. So really nice card in that world. She obviously adds a few other things to the deck as well. And of course, with Donald Pierce in the back, he adds 2 things that John really needs for his finale or big push. And that is both the Pretty Boy and Donald Pierce himself. The fact that it's named that is hilarious and amazing, which is their negate. So ultimately, as we move through here, you realize the Onslaught Citadel has a lot of things like the Onslaught Kill card, so he can kill any of his frontline characters immediately to get access to Donald Pierce coming up. He has the lock off from, I believe it's X-Man, and of course has Dark Beast, only universe. So, several lock-off structures in that mannerism as well. The one thing that I think is the panache that doesn't just make this, another lock-off style deck is the fact that John is able to create his environment that he wants pretty much immediately through the first or second hand. Once he gets an access to one of those Gift of the Gods from through Beta Ray Bill, he's truly going to be able to start to manipulate his combo in his favor. Obviously, there are ways to get around this deck and to potentially beat it, but I think if you don't fully see it coming, and even if you do see it coming, I remember, like I said, I really took this deck for granted when I sat across it, and I had the cards that I think would have won. However, I also have to say, I tried to play, Flary and tried to beat it in a certain way, and this thing just took me down and told me not to mess around with the game of Overpower, because when somebody puts this much time and thought into a deck, trust me that you can't take it for granted. When you sit across the most obscure characters you've ever seen, you better know something's coming for you. Now, the coup de grace, or the cherry on the top of this deck, is Age of Apocalypse. Now, people are like, okay, I get it, no universe cards, and then of course there's I believe no strength power cards as well can be played this battle. Great events, could really, sway or change, certain games and many battles. However, it's the use and the find of an event that I always find combo decks and authors to just, it shows a different level of deck building in my mind. To go through all your resources and to look for things that haven't been used and use them in a fashion that dominate, is, to me, that's just, that's the epitome of deck building in my mind. So the coup de grace, or the cherry on top, is the event that he found. And I'm not 100% sure what it's called. I probably should have a little bit more stuff in front of me when it comes to research. But, I like to sort of be with you in these moments, in these conversations, and not have a big script written. So I like to, I don't want to say freestyle with you, but, be active in this conversation that me and the listener, you are having. So, when I think about the last one, again, I believe it's called Rescue Mission, or, yeah, maybe Rebels Unite, or Rebel Mission, or something along those lines. I believe Gambit's on it, holding his staff, and, he's got his desert garb on. So this event says, move all missions from defeated mission pile to reserve. Now, what a simple, just, basic thought. You're like, okay, well, you get to move them from the bottom to the middle. Well, this allows John to play the first two, maybe even three hands, slowly setting up his combo, or going for it on the first hand and just dropping a couple venture to get his combo in play, and then, getting to the perfect hand through Viking Pyre, and having this event that essentially moves your missions up, and you have the perfect 7 cards. Like, it's just beautiful. It's reminiscent of old thoughts, that's for sure. I have to admit, really, really well thought out. I believe it's a little bit of an ode to a light idea. Back in the Nationals, I believe Phil Keffer ran a deck similar with Marauders and Thor, and cycled when Vertigo was out, and cycled through Gifts of the Gods. But using it in this structure, where you're using it to, achieve your combo or achieve deception, is just really, it's right up the goat's alley. And it's why I wanted to start this podcast with it, because it actually did beat me in that tournament, and I have to admit, it altered the course of my day. And I hope one day, like I said in the Battle of Boston video that was just released, this is in live view and full action, and you get to see the combo amazingly pulled off. So I do recommend you go visit that. And John Keffer, kudos, my friend. Amazing deck. Next on the list. Oof. Did this one ever excite me when I played against it? It's funny that all these decks seem to have like a character that I just love personally. This deck, when I saw it, another one I sat across, and I just did not give it the credit it was due for what it was worth. I had known that the deck builder was, one of the top tier deck builders in the current game and tournament scene. But when I saw the deck, I was just like, what are you even trying to do? And, It's funny. I played the person in the I believe it was the third, fourth place game. So I don't even know if we had, that's already determined and we were just playing a game. But it did end in a unique draw, we'll call it. But not until that combo went off, and I probably wasn't going to win the game, truthfully. But that's neither here nor there, and the game never ended, and we'll never know. Um, this one I played in Battle for Boston in 2023, so it was the last tournament of the big tournament scene, and I had just been knocked out of the semifinals, and if you've ever been in that scenario, how demure that moment is, and you're just like, nah, I don't even want to play anymore, but I had heard about this deck through the tournament, and people had been rumbling about it and talking about it, and I said, yeah, I just want to play against it just to see what it's all about, and I'm glad I did, because this deck, from the original version I'm about to talk about, sort of has, I don't want to say it got groupies, but it got a couple fans in the tournament scene, and they restructured it and used the bones of this concept. And now I believe this deck is, or a conceptual idea of this deck is very viable in the current meta as well. So this one was made by Carl Carafino, and I have to admit the general really produced a hell of a deck here. Hell of a deck. First of all, Zeos is in reserve. Who? And I know a lot of people are like, how do you even say that name? Xaos. But I believe it's Zeos. You could say Chaos. Anyways, I'm going to go with Zeos for this podcast purposes. So Zeos in reserve. Now, Zeos in reserve has a unique inherent ability. It actually says when one of your characters dies, a teammate of Zeos, Zeos gets to draw one card. Really, really, actually, quite a nice little feature on a character, to be honest. Really unique because he has cards, especially a 1-9 teammate, that you would generally see him, on the front line on a lot of teams. So when I saw him in reserve, I was already realizing that I was in for something in this particular match that was going on. On the front line, probably, in my top 3 of all-time characters, Nightcrawler. Not only that, the IQ version, love it, love everything about it. Just obviously a great character and quite functional for this particular deck. I have to admit, I thought so at least. I believe in later tournaments, Carl tried a different character instead of Nightcrawler, and future versions of this deck don't really run Nightcrawler, but I think they should re-examine that thought, to be honest. I think he adds a lot in small little increments in this deck. Next would be New Warriors. I think this is the character that the deck and the combo was created for. So in this scenario, New Warriors get to draw 2 cards from the draw pile after New Warriors have been KO'd. You also get to keep duplicates there. Now, obviously that triggers when New Warriors die, Zeos also triggers. So you get to draw 3 cards when the New Warriors die. Now, I believe it's been ruled that you draw the Zeos card first, and thus would have to discard it if it's a duplicate. And then you would draw the 2 New Warriors cards and get to keep the duplicates that you have after that. So if anybody was wondering how that structure worked as well. The final character that he chose was Beast the Brute. Beast probably, either the best or, second best negator in the game. Beast the Brute being the strength rendition of Beast, and just obviously a great character. I thought was a very good choice in this particular deck, as he is the receiver of dare I say, the crux, or the card that needs the whole deck to sort of go off. He's using the Outback as the battle site. Primarily, I imagine, for a heavy defensive sort of flow there. I'm actually shocked that it was the Outback. I'm curious why that was. I think the Citadel might have been an ultimate better thought, but I think maybe with Beast the Brute on the deck, he, didn't want to sort of like run into that, can't have beast cards in the Citadel sort of same scenario. He might have just wanted more access to his cards. Again, it did well in the tournament. I'm not here to judge. I think it's phenomenal decking concept because Odin's Vault. So Odin's Vault is it's an unique battle site. So it costs 2 points to the deck build. So you actually have to take 2 points away from the whole deck build that occurs there. Now, in this particular one, I did reach out to him, and thank you for reaching back, Carl. I appreciate it. So he explained to me in his Odin's Vault, he had used the Serpent Crown, which was +7 to the grid of energy to any of the characters, and he used Super Soldier Serum, which is +7 fighting to the grid of any character on the team as well. And then the last one he used was Infinity Gauntlet. Now, Infinity Gauntlet is the card that makes the machine run. Now, ultimately, what occurs in this deck, and of course, the finale here would be, again, a great event choice that just symbiotically works with the combo. We have the Crossing, which produces, as we all know, Iron Man is dead. Spider-Man's upset. Don't cry, Peter. He's coming back as Doctor Doom. Spoiler alert. So, with that being said, funny enough, the Infinity Gauntlet is involved in this deck. Very thematic, Carl. I get it now. I get it. I see it. I see the deeper thread here, Carl. So the basic conceptual idea is with Odin's Vault, you're allowed to pull one of the special treasures you have under your vault by discarding a card. Now, of course, that can be one of your discards that already occur in your hand as well. So anytime you discard a card, you are allowed to draw a treasure from Odin's Vault. Now, love this idea because obviously this means he gets to get his card right away, first hand, guaranteed, no matter what. He's allowed to say, I'm going to discard this random card from my hand, no matter what it is, for this Infinity Gauntlet, which is about to make your life a living hell. So the rough idea is Infinity Gauntlet comes out of the Odin's Vault. It gets slapped on Beast the Brute. Now Infinity Gauntlet says before the round begins, you're allowed to discard 5 cards from the top of your draw pile, and you're allowed to bring a character back to life. Snap them right back into reality there for that battle. Now this is really nice because obviously, if you have a way that you can function things towards that character, they can absorb blows, knowing they're going to be just around for that battle. Now, the best thing about the Infinity Gauntlet is you actually get to draw your hand first. So you can actually even see if you want to bring characters back and that sort of scenario as well, based off specials that you could potentially draw in your hand. Now, in this scenario, though, Carl has gone a step deeper and just looked at this. And first and foremost, friends, the Infinity Gauntlet is an artifact card, which I believe is under the tactic range. This can't be stopped. You play an artifact card, your opponent just goes, okay, yeah, you just placed the Infinity Gauntlet on Beast the Brute's hand, and I can't do a single thing about it. I mean, there are obscure cards in the game. I think Serpent Society might have one that says discard a tactic card. in the Battle for Boston, I had played one of the later renditions of this deck that I'd spoken about against a player named Ricky, and I had the card, the Nightcrawler 6, which allows you to discard one of the opponent's tactic cards. So, really kind of obscure cards that are in the game can actually even affect these cards. And most of the obscure cards that are in the game don't even get played because people don't generally play tactic cards. The other one, I believe, being a double shot, unless you're playing Odin's Vault. And when you're playing Odin's Vault, you're generally not too upset because your opponent had to spend 2 deck building points. But when you see a combo deck like this, you should not be happy to see the vault, my friends. I tell you that. So the rough idea of how this deck operates and what he's looking to do is, obviously, if the kill card goes off right away, he gets the beautiful ability of killing the new warriors. The second that kill card or kill event that comes into play goes off, he gets to kill new warriors and draw 3 extra cards that battle. Like, what an advantage. And then the conceptual idea, I think, is to put, the Infinity Gauntlet on Beast the Brute, and then ultimately bring new warriors back to life. And funny enough, when you bring them back to life in another battle, you actually get 4 frontline characters, and then use something like Image Inducer off the man himself, Nightcrawler. I mean, oh God, if you use the beautiful classic insert one, I mean, even better for you. Like, you get to image induce right back onto the new warriors, and you get to kill them all over again, and you get to just draw 3 additional cards every battle. It's actually really unique, really breathtaking. He has the ability to even, like I said, make his other characters 7 energies or 7 fightings. I'm sure he was using a multitude of both. The Outback providing the extra defense he needs until the combo sort of comes into play. I have to just say, really awesome, well thought out deck. Uh, you know, I I thought this really had potential. Again, one of those decks where you just look at it and has, a fighting 7, an energy 7, and a strength 7 all on the same team, and you just take it for granted because you're just like, that hunk of junk, that jalopy, is going to do nothing in this drag race. And the next thing you know, they just got like, a Hemi engine in there, and the thing like literally goes up on 2 wheels, and you're just like, okay. I think I just lost this game, because this is another version of a deck that when he puts you into that combo lock, essentially what happens is he's drawing through every turn. He's drawing 3 as long as he has an image inducer, which I'm sure he was, piling the deck with. So what a just unique way to look at the game. This is what I always talk about when I talk about deck building in my podcasts with you, friends. Like, think deeper. Look at every card. There is potential for so many cards now in this game, especially, as battle sites, create this viability of combo effect and cards played upon cards. Like, I just have to say this, there's still a lot out there to be found and to be cultivated. And I hope this podcast is inspiring you to think outside the box and to think for those decks and just to look at obscure characters, and even as Carl did here, look at artifact cards. Like, there's just so much to it that, again, kudos, General. I salute you. Amazing, amazing, amazing deck. And like I said, we'll never know who would have won that game. That's all I got to tell you. All right, and as we move on here, let's get to the third. This deck was awesome, and I had heard about a rendition of this deck before I got to play it. And I actually got to watch it on a few videos as there was a tournament I didn't get to go to. And, obviously, me, like you, because I know you're listening to this podcast, so you must be, are addicted to the game of OverPower. And obviously I watch every video that comes out, and as I study the game and look at tournaments and look at players who are moving up in the ranks, I always watch their games especially close because I feed off their new ideas and cultivate my own, and obviously want to be ready for when I have to ultimately face them as well. So this gentleman was new to the scene, but old to the scene. And, a 90s player coming back and entering the tournament scene and, looking at the game in a completely fresh mannerism and, using the new Lazarus Rising games home bases to its full effect, or I guess BMG back when the home bases were released to full effect, and ultimately just understanding that there's just so many more layers and depths to the game of OverPower as we move forward through the metas. So this gentleman, the one thing I actually really like and respect about it is he's always cultivating this deck. He's always changing it, like lightly different characters here, different concepts there. The version I picked out of all of them, now for most of these decks, I just picked the OG version, the original time the combo was produced and shown. Sometimes the deck never changes. In this particular one, it consistently changed. So I decided to pick the one that I thought best exemplified the deck, was probably one of the best conceptual ideas of the combo, and I'm curious what the author of the deck ultimately thinks about my choice of all of their different renditions that they ran. I have played against several of the renditions. I actually lost to this rendition, so it's not why I'm choosing it, but it was when I was in the game, how I felt when I felt in certain scenarios, that I ultimately picked this deck, because I just thought there was a few moments in the game I particularly played against him that I was just like, wow, I didn't see that, and now I'm in a spot that I don't even understand. And this deck is also one of those decks that when the combo hits and you don't have the right card for it, it's over. Like, not even like over. This one can end in a, not a bet 7, but a kill your whole team kind of scenario. So kudos, this is the one I chose, and here we go. I'm going to talk about it. Joe Peters. What else can I say? Welcome back to the game. I'm really happy you're here. We have on the front line Mephisto. Accompanying Mephisto, we have Doppelganger. May play any Spider-Man specials. Of course, Mephisto being one of the Masters of Evil fan-made sets that is now legal in the NAOL tournament scene that is currently going on. Now, great character, adds a lot, but we'll get into that in a sec. So Doppelganger second. Now, Doppelganger, I think, is the crux and center and be-all of the deck. I have seen him use Spider-Man, but obviously, again, top tier, loved character by me. But obviously Doppelganger being only, 14 points, and of course, cool Hillshire Farms as well. Promo, again, cool points right there, Joe, for you as well. But I think it's primarily, paying for the Mephisto character. You can't have Spider-Man and Mephisto on the same team. That's, asking a lot of your team to do. Although I believe one rendition I did play against, I think that was a different one. Anyways, so the third character, he has Green Goblin. So Mephisto, Doppelganger, and Green Goblin. Now, Green Goblin, with his normal card set, wasn't overly dare I say, amazing. But once you added in a few of the Masters of Evil cards, he truly, I think, accentuated his character. And in this particular combo, um, added just another depth layer to this deck that I think made the combo just almost surreal, that it could happen in multiple battles, multiple times, and almost under Joe's control, to be certain. The last character being Silver Sable. I think this was just for some innate defense. That's all I think she was truly there for. To bring a little bit of defensive feel to the deck. Now, one thing you'll notice right away about the deck, and if you didn't, that's one thing you should always see right when you see a deck like this, is that there's no negate character on the front line. So, in this particular scenario, your opponent is not going to have any control against any of your big boy style cards. So in these sort of combo decks, you often have to sort of give a little to get a little. And in this particular case, Joe's really giving up his negate aspect, but when his combo goes off, a negate is the last thing he needs. It's desperately what you need, my friend. He's using Muir Island as well. Again, we're going to get into sort of the structure and conceptual idea of why, but I want to sort of just go over the last few things here. Home base 221 Baker Street. Obviously, you can already start to put a lot of these thoughts together in your own mind as we talk about it. And then for me, I thought it was really interesting, the last choice, and I wonder why. I'd love in the comments for him to mention exactly his rationale and thinking behind it, but he was also using the crossing as well. I can't imagine he was using the kill card in this scenario. Maybe no energy power cards, maybe no cards with the word teammate. Something along those lines I could see maybe as a functionality in this deck. So, what does this deck do, you say? Well, once again, I think the first rendition I played in one tournament, I took it for granted, but was luckily able to pull it out in that particular moment. But when I played this one, I have to say, it just got me. I was ready for understanding the combo and what I thought I had to do to beat it. But then the combo went off again and again. And, thankfully in the one uber pivotal round that the combo went off, his super combo, I don't know, I must have had like 2 negates or something just to get out of it, because if you don't have 2 negates in this scenario against him, and his super combo goes off, then I don't think there's a way you can get out of it. I think you just have to lose your whole front line or hope he can't draw. Which, based off the way he builds his deck, in my mind, I'm assuming, would never happen. So you're like, okay, now I'm talking riddles. Now I'm talking, what are you talking about? So ultimately what happens is he plays from Doppelganger the with great power. Now this card allows you to look at the top 8 cards of your draw pile, and you get to choose anyone you want. So you get to look at your whole next hand and choose the best card out of it. Now already that's just an amazing card, because to be able to sort of look at that and gain that aspect is just obviously amazing. But then you put it back on the top of your draw pile, and you're going to draw it again next hand. Well, does Joe Peters not contemplate, well, what if I just get to redraw that in the same hand? Then I will continuously just get to look through the top 8 cards of my draw pile. As long as I get to redraw that top card, I can just continuously cycle through. Well, oh my God, is that not just an amazing conceptual idea? And does this guy not just put everything around him to basically get rid of your negates and to have the functionality to just draw that top card over and over and over and over? So, quickly on the 221 Baker Street, obviously through the Green Goblin, he has the access to the card that says target character must reveal all cards played or that are playable by that character. And play them open-handed. So he gets to discard a card, obviously, in that fashion. Then you have Doppelganger, who has access to the Spider-Man cards, and he gets to ultimately, search for specials in your hand. So if you didn't place a negate and he plays that card, well, he knows you don't have a negate unless it's an activator. So amazing conceptual idea, just adding the 221 Baker Street sort of light oomph to the deck as well. Not sure if he was playing the Professor X Baker Street card out of Muir Island, but I could imagine that it was in there to sort of grab those last two cards that maybe are in your hand and allow him to sort of look through them and choose which one he thinks is worse for him, especially in a gate. So ultimately what he tries to do is he does with great power, and he goes and gets either a defense or another with great power, and he starts to let you play your cards offensively. Now you're like, this is amazing, I get to just play everything and he's not playing anything. Well, in the first couple of hands, he has generally enough to slowly defend what you're doing, and obviously with the Green Goblin card, he obviously has access to a void draw as well. Giving him access to some team defense and that very inert action he needs to draw that top card after he's played with great power. So Green Goblin giving you that functionality is just great for the extra defensive side, but he also provides another card as well where he gets to increase his grid of strength and intellect to 7 and draw a card. Now, the unique thing, and this is one of his Masters of Evils cards. Now, the interesting thing about this card is that it's not a one per deck. So, and after the functionality of, Green Goblin gaining the 2/7s, and of course he gets to keep them for game. Again, a non-one per deck, phenomenal non-one per deck. But it's the functionality of the draw one card, because even after he gains the aspect of both 7s, he can play this card again just to draw one card. Now, of course, if you know what the top of your deck holds is a wild card that you then get to look through the next 8 cards, that's a pretty phenomenal effect. Now, those two characters alone would work amazingly together. But of course, you got to provide a little bit of venture total and another aspect of drawing that top card. And that's where Mephisto comes in, because his Masters of Evil card mimics the Havoc classic card, which essentially allows him a 3 energy, if successful, may draw 2 cards from top of draw pile. So not only does he get to redraw the Spider-Man card, but he gets an additional card as well. Now, this card was uniquely played and found out to be able to be used against a battle site as well. So if he plays that 3 on a battle site, and of course, there's very limited ways to block your battle site, he has the ability then to draw the cards as well. So if you're placed out and he throws it to the battle site, well, it's an automatic hit, even if you have a 1-9 or 1-6 placed, or another defensive style card, including a negate. So the functionality of consistently getting to that with great power just makes this deck phenomenal, because he can continuously cycle through that. Now you're like, well, that's fine, I'll just concede. Well, one thing you're forgetting, and what a lot of people forget about this deck, is Spider-Man has access to a card called Taunt. And it can be played defensively, my friends. Yes, that's right, defensively. So what happens is when he gets you in this little combo chamber of drawing cards and getting the ability to get his top card off his deck and consistently cycling through his deck and putting these threes on you and just putting all this damage on you. Well, you think the only way I can get it, I don't have negates, I can't stop this combo. Oh, I'm going to concede. Well, he just goes taunt. And then you can't do anything, friends. You just sit there and Joe Peters cycles through his deck until he can no longer throw anything that hurts you. It's pretty phenomenal conceptual idea. I've seen and heard stories about him killing whole front lines in one battle because of the access to the cards that he has afterwards that you've played through your whole hand. Now, obviously, with Mirror Island, he has access not only to that Baker Street card, but to the draw three, the Colossus, avoid draw. Like, there's a lot of card access there as well. I have to just admit, Joe Peters stepping away from the game, coming back, just a great overall thought. I really thought the Baker Street edition was one of the best thoughts you had because it really manipulated the negate factor of your opponent. And again, please leave a comment. I'd love to hear what your thought of your best version of this deck is. Or and I don't think about success. I just think about like playability and the combo going off. So again, great deck builder. This is what I'm talking about, friends. Think out the box. Look for these different thoughts and combos. And I hope even just talking about this inspires you to literally pull your box back out and go through every character and just be like, how could this card be used with that card? And, maybe I'll be talking about your deck very shortly. The last deck I'm going to sort of like finish on here, a little bit of an honorable mention. Not so much a combo that will finish you off, but if put in play properly, could just really do well in the tournament. And, it came second in one of the tournaments this year. And for a deck that is just offbeat, off the wall, using characters that are unheard of, I got to talk about it a little bit. And I truly think this gentleman is one of the more unique deck builders that are out there. And I don't use that in any derogatory term. I use that in the highest form of compliment because this person will think through a deck, play through tournaments with decks to really understand its weaknesses and strengths and against the meta. And just when this concept came out, again, it's just when you see a deck and you're just in awe and you just really enjoy visualizing it, playing against it, and seeing them do well in tournaments. It makes you happy because people put so much time and effort in decks that, in card thoughts and, working together with your battle site and your deck and your functionality and your symbiism, that you just have to respect when they just show up with a deck that they believe in, believe it can do well. And I love that this person stuck with this deck for a little while. The first rendition they brought wasn't the one that worked out great for them, so they tweaked it and then literally almost won a tournament with it. So without ado, kudos to one of the greater deck builders in the game, and the designer Tyler Bertrand, one of also the new card designers as we move forward in Lazarus Rising Games. From what I heard, is doing great work in the company. And if he's creating decks like this and combos like this, you should be excited for new renditions of the game and things you could look for, because I'm sure he's put them in there and thought about a lot of these layered effects. So the deck he brought was Grunge. Yeah, I said it. Grunge. Image character that is not Spawn. or sorry, and there's been a little bit of other few other characters that have popped out of image hither tither, but grunge, like what? When you hear of grunge and you see grunge across the table, I don't know about you, but I maybe know one or two cards of the character set. I mean, that's not true. I know all the cards, but initially I'm just saying, like, when you're playing in a tournament and your mind's all over the place, you're looking at this character and you're like, I know one or two of their cards. Like, how could I know more about like you almost want to pull your phone out and like look at all their specials quickly. In the center, he's got Mephisto. Tyler's playing a mono 8 here as well. Beside them, he's got the X Babies. In the back, he's got Silver Sable. As the battle site, he's got Onslaught Citadel. And he also was running Odin's Vault in this particular deck as well. Now, in this one as well, he was running Dark Phoenix Saga as the mission set. So really, really a lot of thoughts here to sort of go over quickly. The conceptual idea of the deck and I dare I say the combo of the deck would be that Mephisto and Onslaught, both from the Onslaught Citadel, have the Cannon Fodder special. Now, the Cannon Fodder special that's the name reference of the Onslaught version of it, but it essentially says all attacks must be made against one character. Now, what's unique about this is not only does Onslaught Citadel have that and say all attacks must be made against one character, well, Mephisto being the mono 8 in this deck, a lot of the times, he's the primary getter of all the attacks. And he also has one of these cards. So he also has the ability to gain it and throw all attacks against his, teammate. Well, funny enough, Grunge also has Danger Seeker, which is opponent must make all attacks against Grunge, and on top of that, you're -2 to all actions, and that's for remainder of game. All three of them being for remainder of game. Of course, the Onslaught and the Mephisto versions being able to actually be played defensively. Of course, the Grunge version having to be played offensively. Now, you're like, okay, so you can move attacks around. Well, Grunge has an inherent ability, and this is what I'm talking about, friends. Look at characters, not just their stats, their inherent abilities, how that could work in a combo and a function for you, and what kind of new deck could you create. And what happens here is Grunge cannot be KO'd unless there's a multi-power hit on him. Now you're like, but Marcel, in your basics, I learned that, dead is dead. And if I get 20 points on a character +4 or +3 colors, then they're dead no matter what. Well, that's 100% the truth. However, in a lot of deck builds, you only have X amount of this icon, X amount of that icon, X amount of that icon. Well, if he can defend X icon off his character and you can never get 3 icons, well, you could have, 70 Venture on Grunge, and he's not dead. As long as you can't get that third icon on Grunge, you're never going to kill him until either Tyler himself goes, Onslaught, kill him because I want to win the game, and that's the rest of the Venture. In this particular one, I believe he was using the Vault to sort of boost characters in terms of their stats and functionality that way. The deck, like I said, honorable mention, really great deck, really great design, little bit less per se of a combo that finishes you. However, when Danger Seeker's in play, and you have to throw all your attacks against Grunge, and he's avoiding your multis with his special that says avoid intellect icon and draw a card, or he's pulling all Venture over to Grunge and tucking it with or killing them with Onslaught, like for the Venture win. Like, there's just a good depth layer here, and I gotta say, like I said, honorable mention. Great conceptual idea and great deck designer. Combo decks are real, my friends, and as we get closer to the modern age, and as we sort of keep exploring this legacy concept that we're all doing in this golden age, I have to say, just look deeper. Look at the card effect with card effect, especially through battle sites. And I think you may find your own combo out there, friends. I believe in you. You've been climbing this mountain with me for a long time. So, don't forget to subscribe, like, and of course leave a comment. I hope the 4 people I spoke about in this tournament or in this podcast about combo decks, make comments and sort of give me their thoughts on I guess, my review, and their thoughts on their deck. So again, friends, like, subscribe. We're so close. I just need a few more, and we are going to be doing our first live cast very, very shortly, my friends. I promise you that before the new year. So thanks for listening, and talk to you soon.